Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. My guest today is Susan Belsinger, and when we were speaking on the phone, she said, well, it's been a 50-year life with herbs. And I thought, what a great idea. What a great thing to talk about, because Susan is an expert. I'm going to see her in an upcoming event close to me that's a convention, an expo for heirloom plants. She's one of the presenters down there, so we'll get to meet in person. But today she's joining me on Zoom. So welcome, Susan.
Hi there. I'm glad to be here with two sensationally silver, beautiful goddess, mother, and daughter team.
Thank you. That's true. My daughter's my producer and in many ways my brain when I do this thing. And we're definitely in this thing together. But you too have glorious gray hair, beautiful gray hair. And it's on its way to you. My gift box of Sensationally Silver with our 3 products in it. I think you're going to love them. So,
Oh, good.
yeah. So, Susan, tell me about that 50-year life with herbs. How did you get into it? Who taught you? And what's it been all about?
Well, I've had teachers all along the way, and I'm still learning every day, which I think learning every day is a really important thing with aging. Um, I began when I went to Europe. My mom wasn't a very good cook. I mean, she was, she cooked frozen broccoli and things like that. And she didn't use herbs. So I grew up in a house that had oregano, nutmeg, salt and pepper, and occasionally garlic in a little box in the refrigerator. So when I went to Europe, it really began. I spent a winter in North Africa. And this is back in the 70s. And when I walked down those streets in the Medina and the souk, I was just overwhelmed with the fragrance of bags and bags and stacks and piles of all kinds of herbs and spices. And I didn't know what they were, I mean, a cinnamon stick, yes. But so I decided then and there that I wanted to learn about using herbs and spices. And then when I went to live in Italy, I lived in Italy for 2 years, and I really learned there about eating with the seasons, which is really important. Here in America, we can get anything we want any time of year. But over there, they really do eat with the seasons. And the mountaintop in Tuscany that I lived on, I grew basil. They had bay trees 40 foot tall. They had hedges of rosemary and sage. So I started keeping a notebook from Africa, all the way through Europe. And those were my basic first recipes. That I wrote in cookbooks and articles.
That's a beautiful beginning. Yeah. I too had a mother, well, she just absolutely hated to cook. And our cooking wasn't very interesting, kind of like what you were saying, the 50s kind of cooking where it was in a package and that was supposed to be better somehow. And to learn how to season things and what you're saying, dealing with fresh food so that you're dealing with everything that blends in that season. I bet there's something to be learned about how those different herbs work to combine with the seasons, to cool us off when it's hot, to warm us up when it's cold. Am I making that up or is that true?
No, 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 no. It's perfect sense. And so what I tell my students is that if you use vegetables and fruits and herbs that are all in the same season, then you're going to always get good flavor combinations. In other words, like in summertime, tomatoes and basil are going to be wonderful, but you wouldn't necessarily put tomatoes with rosemary because rosemary is a more resinous fall winter herb, you know. And certainly in the spring when I do strawberries and arugula, that's really wonderful. But you wouldn't put strawberries with sage. You just wouldn't do that. So it is it is knowing about herbs and their flavors, but it is also working with things in season so that you get the best flavor and they're complementary.
And I want to talk about the benefits as well, because that's what I'm really asking is what are the benefits with using the foods and those flavors, those herbal flavors in the different seasons? Do they sort of ameliorate some of the problems of those different seasons?
I would say yes. One thing for summertime right now that we're just finishing, the Asteraceae are a plant group that a lot of people are allergic to. So it's got things like the daisies, the ragweed, things like that. Okay, so um, if we eat the foods in the season or use a honey that has those infused in them, and of course, we're talking local honey. We're talking local whenever we can, um, because your own backyard herbs are your best medicine. They're better than what you can buy off the shelf. So buying at the farmer's market, visiting your local farmers sourcing is the way to go. So I use my local honey and I infuse a lot of herbs in there so that I have them for the different seasons. I have a goldenrod honey, I have a mint honey, I have a garlic honey, so I use them. Um, and basically I have no allergy symptoms, because I use them for health. And also anytime you have a sore throat, if you take a mouthful of honey and let it just trickle down, that's going to coat your throat. That's just easy natural medicine. And so I do a garlic one so that when I take a clove of garlic and let the honey drizzle down my throat and then eat the garlic. And that's going to knock out any cold or sore throat or flu symptom.
Boy, that's a good thing to know. I can personally testify to using local wildflower honey for allergies. I used to sneeze something horrible in the spring and the fall, and I don't anymore. I use it every day. And yeah, it works. It truly works.
So the thing about herbs is that pretty much any herb is anti-inflammatory, not everyone, but a lot of them. And they're all high in antioxidants. So just using herbs, besides their minerals and vitamins, and each herb has its own characteristic for different ailments. In other words, if I were one of my favorite herbs is tulsi, which is holy basil. Okay. And so I grow a lot of tulsi, and I'm going to show you right now. I have tulsi in a basket that I've dried, and I'm comminuting this tulsi. And comminuting means to break down in smaller pieces. So I'm holding it by the stem and pulling the leaves off. And then I'm going to store the dried leaves in a container, okay, so that I have these on hand all winter long, all fall and winter. But the thing that I like to do with tulsi the best, and this is with fresh tulsi, is I put it into a bottle of VSOP brandy. So this is a tincture, okay? When you infuse any herb in alcohol, it's a tincture. And so what Tulsi does, probably out of all the herbs that I know besides lemon balm, Tulsi is an adaptogen. So it relieves stress and anxiety. Now, a lot of times I do my tinctures. Tinctures are most often done with vodka, but I like the taste of brandy better. So I put my Tulsi in my brandy, and then I pack it into little jars, little bottles with droppers, and I take that anytime I'm feeling stress or anxiety. And you can go to the store, the health food store, and buy Tulsi tincture. You can do that. But by making my own, I'm getting the benefits of my backyard. I'm able to make in large quantities and share it with friends who come back with their empty bottle and say, more, more, you know. So this is a really easy way. And I could put Tulsi in a cup of tea, the dried, you know. I could put it in a dessert, a cake that I'm making, a sauce, a chai, or, you know, I can use the tincture in those things, or I can just take the tincture right in my mouth. Of course, the tincture is delicious in a cocktail or a mocktail.
Hmm. I'm wondering if people aren't thinking, well, of course, stress is reduced. I'm drinking alcohol, but it doesn't sound like that's what's going on because it's such a small amount, right?
No, it's a dropper full, you know, so it doesn't affect you. And if you are a person who can't really do alcohol, or you're giving this to a child, then I make a glycerin, you know, so I use vegetable glycerin as the menstruum. The menstruum is the liquid that you infuse something in. Okay. So if I'm making an infusion, for instance, a cup of tea is an infusion. All right. It's an infusion of Camellia sinensis leaves, tea leaves, and you basically put the leaf into water, and it can be cold water, or you can do a cold water infusion, or hot water, which is generally how we make tea, and let it steep for a little while, and then strain it off. So infusions can be made in vinegar, alcohol, water, milk. You know, you can infuse honey, you know, oil. Whereas an infusion uses leaves and flowers, the soft parts of our botanicals. And a decoction is different in that. A decoction is when you take that herb or spice and put it in water and simmer it for 15 to 20 minutes, because you're doing the hard parts of plants. You're doing the bark or the root, like echinacea root, or the seeds or the nuts or the berries. And you can't just infuse that and get the virtues. You have to simmer it a little bit to decoct them from there. So soft parts of plants, hard parts of plants, infusions, decoctions. It's pretty easy. And everybody can do this. This is herbal alchemy in your kitchen that is so easy to do. I mean, to make your own chai, you're going to take your cinnamon, cardamom, and some black tea, most likely, or green tea. You can do it with either, and maybe some allspice berries, whatever you like, a couple of cloves. And you're going to simmer it for 15 or 20 minutes. So when you make a chai like that, that's a decoction, you know, and all of those are so good for you. They're warming, they stimulating, you know, they're going to make everything in your body move. They're going to make your heart beat, you know, they're going to make your blood pump. So it's that easy to use herbs and spices.
What you're describing, Susan, it sounds like it just turns the lights on in you, just brightens you up. Yes?
Oh, it does. You know, so I got up this morning and came down and brewed my cup of tea. And that's after I did my yoga, and I spritzed with my lemon balm spritzer, you know, and I used my herbal lotion that I make. So before I even get downstairs, I've done a lot of herbal things. And then I made brewed my tea, but last night I did a lemon basil whipped cream to go on ripe peaches. So I took those peaches, sliced them, and put them with lemon basil syrup, which is just making a simple syrup with sugar and water, or I used maple syrup last night. Um, and then you put that over the peaches, and they just suck in that flavor, you know, and so it's so delicious. And then to really gild the lily, I put lemon basil in the whipped cream carton in the morning, took it a couple times during the day. Then I strain it out and I whipped the cream, and it's absolutely ethereal. I make lemon basil gelato. It's one of my favorite herbs. And so anyway, this morning I had the lemon basil whipped cream on a half of a blueberry scone.
Oh,
So yeah, and then I had my little bit of Tulsi tincture. So I'm just a happy camper.
yeah. It sounds like it's fun to play with all this. If you're kind of
Oh,
an experimenter, you can just see what works for you. So I'm going to get a little bit selfish here, Susan. I have hands that
mhm.
hurt a lot. Tell me what you would say to me if I came to see you and I said, what can I do to help the inflammation in my hands? What would you tell me?
First off, turmeric right away, for me. Okay, so I have arthritis in my hands and my knees and my ankles. And uh, last year, my hands were really, really hurting me so that I felt encumbered. And I went to an orthopedic and he did the electrode test and he said, yeah, you've got arthritis and you've got carpal tunnel and we'll schedule you for surgery in both wrists. And I went home and went, no. I said, what does that entail? And he told me how it cuts and, it just, they cut. So your uh, tendons aren't attached anymore. I'm like, I don't like that idea. So I started anti-inflammatory herbs and foods. And I do turmeric every day. I make a lot of golden milk, drink a cup of that at night, usually. You know what golden milk is?
No, no, I don't.
Okay. So I studied Kundalini yoga in the 70s, and that's where I had my first cup of golden milk in an ashram. And they said, uh, you do turmeric every day because it oils the joints and it helps with joint pain and ache. And so basically, what you do is you take a cup of milk, any kind of milk, can be, oat milk, almond milk, real, cow's milk, and you heat it up with a teaspoon of ground turmeric. Now, I grow my own turmeric. It's tropical, so you need a greenhouse. But I grate fresh turmeric, which tastes even better and is, of course, a little bit better for you. So you put that in the milk and warm it gently. And you have to put a little bit of fat in there. So I put in the ashram, it was butter, regular whole milk, turmeric, pepper to piperine to help to extract the enzymes from the turmeric, and they did honey. And I've updated mine. I really like it with oat milk, but you can do any kind. I use a teaspoon of maple syrup, and I use just a grate or two of black pepper, which helps your body to absorb the curcumin in the turmeric. Okay. So it's one of each thing. 1 cup of milk, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, 1 teaspoon of coconut oil, the fat, which is going to help, 1 or 2 grinds of the pepper, and 1 teaspoon of sweetener, can be honey or uh, maple syrup. And you warm that, and because I'm using fresh, I strain it off. But if you're using ground turmeric, you don't need to. And you drink that before you go to bed, and you sleep like a baby. It's really wonderful. And it really, really helps with the inflammation. But I do other herbs also. And I take magnesium, which I really believe helps. I take a magnesium before bedtime. I do some ashwagandha. And of course, any stress uh, and anxiety relieving herbs are going to help you relax more also, because I tend to have I don't sleep through the night real easily. So I want to do things like that to help me relax. But the now the thing about all of these things I'm telling you is that they work for me. They might not work for every person. And that depends on the person's metabolism. Turmeric is pretty safe across the board. It's not contraindicative with other herbs where like echinacea, if you're on heart medicine, you shouldn't really do echinacea. So you need to do your research. My mom is 98. I have longevity on my side. She has terrible arthritis. And so uh, when I talk to mom about these things, she'll be online and she'll say, "Well, what is coenzyme Q10? I'm going to take that. It says it's going to help my joints." And I'm like, you can't just go online and read one place and think it's going to save you. And if they promise the world, you can believe they're not going to work. So what you have to do is you personally need to do your own research. And in as an herbalist, we do a practice called materia medica, and that means you're finding out information about every herb that you're using. I have a huge materia medica. I used to write it, but it's online now. And the minimum is three sources. If you're researching something like ashwagandha, you're going to look at one source, and then if you only look at two, they could be they could be the opposite. So you always need at least three sources that so you get an agreement of what this does for you or how safe it is for you, or can you combine it with this or that kind of thing. So it is important for you to be responsible for your own health. And if you're a little bit confused about taking something, you can always ask your healthcare practitioner, to make sure it's safe, you know. Um, so anyway, I prefer to use herbs any way, shape, or form than to use a drug.
Yes, I think lots of us do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good to find a doctor who you can work with. When I went through menopause, I said, I'm going to do black cohosh, I'm going to do yam cream, to my doctor. He said, you want to go on the hormones? And I'm like, no. And he goes, okay, you do the research. I trust you. And I came out the other side, just fine.
So,
So this can be done.
right, but you do need to find if you're consulting with a physician, it has to be someone who respects this approach as well as
Right.
the traditional medical approach.
Right.
And that's not always easy to find.
No, it isn't. So I am fortunate, and there's a network, you can talk to people who will help you find that kind of a doctor rather than going on drugs or doing surgery immediately. Always investigate, because we want I don't want to cut my body if I don't have to. I don't want to do that. And you know, some days are better than others for my arthritis in my hands, but on the whole, I am not nearly in pain the way I was. And I feel good about my path right now. I am not against surgery and medicine when it's really needed. I'm going to go do that. If I break my leg, I'm going to have a doctor fix it. I can't fix it with herbs, but I can help to heal it. My husband broke his hip years ago, and he has pins and plates, and the doctor said probably you're gonna have a limp and maybe 10% um your leg won't be the same length, you know. And so I went right for the comfrey. I did comfrey poultices on him twice a day. And when he went back to the doctor said, "What are you doing?" Because it's healing really well. And he's back windsurfing. He has no limb. His legs are the same length. So um, but you have to believe too. You have to
Yeah.
believe in the herbs and what you're doing.
Well, I imagine sometimes, Susan, you get to believe for other people until they believe for themselves, right? Until they get the results because you've got the experience. You've seen these other people and other situations be improved by the herbs and the natural approach. So is there kind of a list that maybe persons of age need to be aware of that they could especially investigate that might be helpful for them, a list of sort of super herbs for older people?
So each person is different and we each have different bodies. So there's no one herb for this that's going to fix it for everybody. Um, so if you don't know and you're new to herbs, it wouldn't be bad to find an herbalist in your neighborhood or join an herb group, who can talk about these. The fun thing about herb groups is that we bring our herbs and share them, and we bring our products that we make and that are very healing. And it's healing to be with people who are like-minded anyway. So any herbs that you use are going to make you healthier, pretty much across the board. So if you put rosemary and sage in your stew of any kind, or your soup, or whatever you're cooking, you're going to get the benefits of those herbs, both in minerals and vitamins, but also in the virtues of what that plant does for you. Okay. So it's as simple as taking your water, okay, and then taking mint. Mint is very simple. The mint is blooming in my garden right now. Spear or pepper. Then you're going to crush it a little bit to bruise it and release its essential oils and put it in your water. This is going to cool me down like you wouldn't believe on a hot, sunny day. Okay. It's going to help to refresh and replenish my body. And it tastes great. It was that quick, and I've got a really delicious mint water. Okay. So we have these herbs at hand. And if you don't grow herbs, I would encourage you, even all these herbs grow really well in pots. You don't have to have a garden space or a garden plot. And they can be, grown on your patio or your porch or even some herbs can be grown indoors on your windowsill, but not all herbs do. So, and this is what I'm going to be talking a lot about at the Heirloom Symposium in Ventura, about how to make and capture the essence of these herbs so that you have them on hand. And for instance, right now, my chive blossoms, okay, are in bloom, okay? So alliums are wonderful. They lower your cholesterol. They're good for your, so they're good for your heart. They help to help with all different sorts of things in your body. So I take those flowers and I put them in a bottle of white wine vinegar. And I have a chive blossom vinegar that's going to be delicious on any salad or wherever I want to use vinegar. And I'm going to get the benefits of this herb. People say that they worry about chili peppers, especially my mom has acid reflux, okay? But chili peppers and garlic, all the allium family, they really help to lower your cholesterol, okay? And believe it or not, they help your digestion. Chilies in small amounts are really good for you. And the more chili peppers you eat, the more you can build up your tolerance. Okay. So they're not bad. They're not going to cause acid reflux for, if you have that kind of a digestive issue. And I'm going to be talking about chili peppers. I'm doing a program, Hot, 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 from mild to wild. So I talk about, beginning easily and how to handle them so you don't burn your hands or your eyes or your mouth, and also things that will help if you do. So it's that simple. And right now I'm capturing the essence of herbs in all ways. I'm doing it in the vinegar. I'm doing it in the alcohol to make tinctures. And I am putting them in oils. This is an arnica oil, and I make a calendula oil. So, everyone knows that arnica is going to ease joint pain. So I make my own joint pain oils, and I use ginger essential oil on there because ginger is warming. It's going to really help soothe it. So I have various concoctions of herbs that I put together that I rub them on my sore knees and wrists and hands every day. And I often put a teaspoon or so in the hot tub and soak in it when I'm feeling really achy or I've been working in the garden and my knees hurt, that kind of thing.
Susan, I found myself wishing I lived next door to you so I could just run next door and say, what do I do about this? And how do I make this? And you've given us so much wonderful information. I can imagine people listening to this and watching it over and over again and taking notes. I've got to ask you just a couple of questions just about you, Susan, before we say goodbye today. Tell me, what's the best part of your life right now? What's the most exciting part?
Whew. Well, I love to travel, so I'm leaving Saturday for Ventura, and I get to come to California for a week. So I really love that. Um, Gardening is a great joy for me, and uh, I'm the kind of a person who uh, I like to nurture people, myself included, and nourish people. And by growing and using herbs, they're really joyous and they're magical, and they heal us and they feed us and they do all that. So I'm really busy right now. You know, my whole ceiling in my living room is covered with all kinds of drying herbs. My oven, has the oven light on drying things. So the family has notes around. If the oven light's on, you do not bake anything, it's that kind of thing. So that makes me really happy. And I love botanizing. I love going out on the trail and foraging and taking people on hikes, to teach them how, that chickweed is going to be just the best thing you can possibly eat in the springtime to get your minerals, and that kind of thing. So I'm out there gathering and foraging both wild and in my yarden. My yarden is my yard and garden.
I love that. And we have a show coming up with someone who's going to be teaching us about rewilding. So if you're
Oh,
interested in
good.
that, of bringing back the plants that are native to your area, which means also bringing back the insects and the birds and the wildlife, we're going to be talking about that. And that fits right in with what Susan's been telling us today. So, one last question, Susan. What do you have to say today to other persons of age?
Um, Learn something new every day. Um, Eat seasonally and locally. Um, and the most fun is to be creative. Don't sit on the sofa and watch TV. Come on, get out there, take a walk, pick some herbs, watch the bees on the flowers, just do. Don't just sit. It's okay to sit and relax and rest, but don't do it all the time. We need to keep motivated to stay young.
I love that. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for all the information. And I think especially for your passion for this whole realm of life, food, plants, just feeding ourselves on every level, including spiritually. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who've joined us today for our talk with Susan Belsinger, a great expert on herbs. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great to be with you all.
Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.